A broken red droid, a simple repair, a farmer's practical choice. These three tiny moments, lasting less than 60 seconds, determined whether billions would live or die, whether freedom would triumph or tyranny would reign eternal, and whether the Force itself would survive or be corrupted beyond recognition. Today, we're exploring the most catastrophic butterfly effect in Star Wars history. What if Uncle Owen had simply chosen the protocol droid instead of the astromech? What if R2-D2 never made it to the Lars farm, never met Luke Skywalker, and never delivered Princess Leia's desperate message? The answer will chill you to your core, because in this timeline, the Empire doesn't just win, it achieves something far worse than victory. It achieves perfection. Chapter 1. The fateful choice that changed everything. Picture the scene. The scorching twin suns of Tatooine beat down on the Lars moisture farm as Uncle Owen examines two droids offered by the Jawas. In our timeline, a malfunctioning motivator on a red R5 unit led to the selection of R2-D2, setting in motion the events that would topple an empire. But what if Owen had made a different choice? What if he had selected C-3PO over the little astromech droid? This single decision, choosing a protocol droid over a utility droid, would have cascaded into one of the most dramatically different timelines in Star Wars history. We're not just talking about Luke's story changing. We're talking about the complete failure of the Rebel Alliance, the permanent reign of the Galactic Empire, and the ultimate victory of the Sith. Today, we're exploring how this seemingly minor purchasing decision would have doomed the galaxy to eternal darkness. From the immediate practical consequences on the moisture farm to the cosmic implications for the Force itself, every aspect of the Star Wars saga transforms when that little astromech droid remains with the Jawas. The irony is devastating. Owen Lars, trying to make the most practical choice for his farm, would unknowingly sentence billions to death and the galaxy to tyranny. Sometimes the fate of everything hinges on the smallest of moments. Chapter 2. The Practical Disaster. Owen's decision seems logical at first glance. C-3PO, with his protocol programming and multiple language capabilities, could help with trading negotiations with Jawas, Tusken Raiders, and other moisture farmers. His etiquette subroutines might even improve relations with suppliers from Anchorhead or Mos Eisley. For a farmer trying to maximize profits in a harsh environment, a protocol droid appears more valuable than another astromech. But this choice immediately creates practical problems that ripple outward. Without R2-D2's technical expertise, the moisture farm's efficiency plummets. C-3PO, despite his protestations about being quite knowledgeable about the binary language of moisture vaporators, lacks the hands-on repair skills that keep the farm operational. Vaporators break down more frequently, hydroponic systems fail, and the power converters that Luke was supposed to pick up from Tosche Station become desperately needed rather than routine maintenance. Luke finds himself overwhelmed with technical work that R2-D2 would have handled effortlessly. Instead of having time to practice his piloting or dream about leaving Tatooine, he's constantly buried in repair work that C-3PO can diagnose but cannot fix. The Golden Droid's tendency to recite regulations and provide historical context proves frustrating when what's needed is actual mechanical intervention. Meanwhile, R2-D2 remains with the Jawas, still carrying Princess Leia's desperate message in the stolen Death Star plans. The little droid's programming drives him to continue seeking out Obi-Wan Kenobi, but without Luke's intervention and discovery, R2-D2 becomes just another piece of Jawa merchandise, rolling around in their sandcrawler while carrying the galaxy's only hope for salvation. The Jawas, unaware of the droid's precious cargo, continued their nomadic trading routes. R2-D2's occasional attempts to escape in search of Ben Kenobi are thwarted by restraining bolts and the vast emptiness of the Tatooine desert. Each day that passes brings the Death Star closer to operational status while the crucial intelligence remains trapped in the astromech's memory banks.
Chapter 3. The Message Never Delivered. Without R2-D2's escape attempt and Luke's pursuit, the chain of events that leads to Obi-Wan Kenobi never begins. The old hermit remains in his cave, unaware that Princess Leia has been captured and that the Death Star plans are so tantalizingly close. Luke never encounters the Tusken Raiders, never needs rescue, and never learns his true heritage or destiny. Obi-Wan Kenobi, still going by the name Ben, continues his lonely vigil over Luke from a distance. He senses disturbances in the Force. The destruction of Alderaan sends shockwaves through the galaxy that even isolated hermits can feel, but without the catalyst of R2-D2's message, he has no specific call to action. The old Jedi Master remains paralyzed by his past failures and his promise to watch over Luke. Meanwhile, Princess Leia's situation grows increasingly desperate. Held aboard the Death Star, she faces torture and interrogation without any hope of rescue. Her message to Obi-Wan, her desperate gambit to get the Death Star plans to their rebellion, has failed completely. Vader's interrogation techniques combined with advanced Imperial technology eventually break down her resistance. The psychological torture proves particularly effective. Leia is forced to watch as the Death Star systematically destroys Rebel-held worlds. Alderaan was just a beginning. Mon Cala, Sullust, and other Rebel strongholds fall to the ultimate weapon. Each planet's destruction weighs on Leia's conscience, as she knows she could end the slaughter by revealing location of the Rebel base on Yavin 4. Grand Moff Tarkin's strategy proves devastatingly effective. Rather than executing Leia immediately after destroying Alderaan, he keeps her alive as a witness to the Empire's growing power. Each destroyed world, each silenced rebellion, each demonstration of the Death Star's capabilities slowly breaks down her will to resist. Chapter 4. The Death Star's Unopposed Reign. Without the Death Star plans falling into Rebel hands, the Alliance has no knowledge of the battle station's weakness. The thermal exhaust port remains an unknown vulnerability, and the technical readouts that would have revealed the station's construction flaws never reached the Rebel engineers and tacticians who could have exploited them. The Death Star's reign of terror begins in earnest. Tarkin's doctrine of fear through superior firepower becomes Imperial policy on a galactic scale. Entire star systems surrender at the mere threat of the Death Star's arrival. The psychological impact proves even more devastating than the weapon itself. The knowledge that the Empire can destroy any planet, any civilization, any hope of resistance with a single command. The Rebel Alliance, already struggling against overwhelming Imperial forces, finds itself facing an impossible situation. Their conventional military tactics prove utterly useless against a weapon that can destroy entire fleets with a single shot. Mon Mothma and other Alliance leaders are forced to consider the unthinkable: surrender or watch every world they seek to protect be reduced to cosmic dust. Some Rebel cells attempt desperate sabotage missions against the Death Star, but without inside knowledge of its structure and weaknesses, these become suicide runs that accomplish nothing beyond providing Tarkin with more examples of Imperial might. The destruction of these brave but doomed missions further demoralize the Alliance and convinces fence-sitting systems to openly declare for the Empire. The economic impact proves equally devastating. Trade routes throughout the galaxy shift to avoid any hint of Rebel sympathy. Worlds that might have quietly supported the rebellion now actively hunt down Alliance sympathizers to prove their loyalty to the Empire.
Chapter 5. Luke's Mundane Destiny. Without the catalyst of R2-D2's escape and his subsequent adventure, Luke Skywalker remains trapped on Tatooine, unaware of his Force sensitivity and its crucial role in galactic events. The farm boy who should have become the galaxy's greatest Jedi instead spends his days repairing moisture evaporators and dreaming of a future that will never come. C-3PO's presence on the farm creates its own unique dynamic. The protocol droid's constant chatter and encyclopedic knowledge provide Luke with stories of the wider galaxy, but these tales only increase his frustration with his mundane existence. C-3PO's accounts of the Clone Wars, his service to various diplomats and senators, and his experiences across countless worlds make Luke's isolation feel even more oppressive. Luke's Force sensitivity remains dormant without proper training or triggering events. He occasionally experiences unusually quick reflexes or uncanny intuition, but these manifestations are so subtle that they're easily dismissed as natural talent.
The young man who could have moved mountains with his mind instead struggles to move water through corroded pipes. Owen and Beru Lars notice Luke's increasing restlessness and depression. Their nephew becomes withdrawn and bitter, the enthusiastic young man who once raced through Beggar's Canyon transformed into a resigned adult who sees no future beyond the endless cycle of farming and maintenance. His dreams of attending the Imperial Academy fade as practical concerns and family obligations keep him anchored to Tatooine. The irony deepens when Imperial recruitment officers occasionally visit Anchorhead and Mos Eisley. Luke, in his desperation to escape, seriously considers joining the Imperial military, the very organization that would have been his greatest enemy in another timeline. Only Owen's adamant refusal and the farm's labor needs prevent Luke from enlisting in service to the Empire that destroyed his father. Chapter 6: The Jedi's Fading Hope. Obi-Wan Kenobi faces his darkest period during these years of Imperial dominance. The old Jedi Master, watching the galaxy fall deeper into darkness while the Chosen One's son remained unaware of his destiny, begins to question everything he believes about the Force and the prophecies that once guided his actions. The destruction of world after world weighs heavily on Obi-Wan's conscience. Each planet reduced to rubble represents not just millions of lives lost, but also his failure to act. His memories of Qui-Gon's faith in the living Force provide little comfort when that living essence is being systematically exterminated across the galaxy. Obi-Wan's connection to the Force begins to fade, not through any failing in his abilities, but through his growing despair and isolation. The light side of the Force has always drawn strength from hope, compassion, and connection to others. As these elements disappear from the galaxy under Imperial rule, Obi-Wan finds himself spiritually withering. His occasional glimpses of Luke through surveillance or chance encounters in Anchorhead provide brief moments of hope, but these are overwhelmed by the knowledge that he has failed in his most crucial mission. The boy who should be training as a Jedi instead shows signs of the same frustration and anger that consumed his father. Without intervention, Luke appears destined to either join the Empire or waste away on Tatooine. The hermit begins to consider drastic alternatives. Perhaps he should reveal himself to Luke directly, ignoring Owen's wishes and the danger of Imperial discovery. Perhaps he should seek out other Force-sensitive individuals who might serve as alternative Chosen Ones. Perhaps the prophecy was wrong, and Anakin was never meant to bring balance to the Force. These dark thoughts represent a fundamental crisis of faith for Obi-Wan Kenobi. The Jedi Master, who once served as a beacon of hope and wisdom, finds himself questioning not just his choices, but the very nature of the Force.
Chapter 7: The Empire's Golden Age, 1630 p.m. to 1915. With the Rebel Alliance crushed and the Death Star serving as the ultimate deterrent, the Galactic Empire enters what Imperial historians would later call its Golden Age. Palpatine's vision of order and peace through strength appears vindicated as star systems throughout the galaxy submit to Imperial rule without resistance. The economic benefits of this forced peace prove substantial. Without the constant drain of military resources needed to fight the rebellion, the Empire can invest in infrastructure, colonization, and technological advancement. The Death Star's construction techniques lead to other massive engineering projects: planetary shields, hyperspace beacons, and artificial worlds that demonstrate Imperial power and capability. Cultural suppression becomes systematic and thorough. The Empire's control extends beyond military and political spheres into education, entertainment, and religious practices. The Jedi are remembered only as cautionary tales about the dangers of mysticism and rebellion. Force-sensitive children are identified early and either recruited into Imperial service or simply disappear. The efficiency of Imperial rule creates a generation that knows no alternative. Young people across the galaxy grow up in a universe where the Empire is simply the natural order of things. The stories of the Republic and the Jedi become mythological rather than historical, distant legends that have no relevance to their structured, predictable lives. Vader's role in this new order evolves significantly.
Without Luke's influence and the emotional turmoil of confronting his son, Anakin Skywalker remains completely buried beneath the Darth Vader persona. The Dark Lord becomes the Empire's perfect enforcer, efficiently eliminating any remaining pockets of resistance while advancing Imperial doctrine throughout the galaxy. The Sith achieve their ultimate victory not through dramatic conquest, but through the simple elimination of hope. The dark side of the Force grows stronger with each passing year, fed by the despair and resignation of billions of beings who see no alternative to Imperial rule. Chapter 8. The Force Awakens, but for whom? 1915 p.m. to 2200 p.m. As years pass and the Empire's grip on the galaxy tightens, the Force itself begins to respond to the overwhelming imbalance between light and dark. However, without the Skywalker bloodline actively serving the light side, the Force's attempts to restore balance take unexpected and dangerous forms. Force-sensitive individuals begin manifesting abilities spontaneously across the galaxy, but without proper Jedi training, most fall to the dark side or drive themselves insane. The Empire's Inquisitors work overtime to track down and eliminate these emerging threats, but their numbers continue to grow as the Force desperately seeks champions for the light. Some of these untrained Force users band together in small cults or hidden enclaves, trying to piece together fragments of Jedi lore from ancient texts or half-remembered stories. However, without access to proper training methods or understanding of the light side's disciplines, most of these groups either self-destruct through internal conflict or fall to dark side corruption. Luke Skywalker, now in his 30s and still trapped on Tatooine, begins experiencing more frequent and intense Force manifestations. Strange dreams plague his sleep, visions of burning worlds, faceless armies, and golden droids speaking in languages he doesn't recognize. His reflexes become unnaturally sharp, and he occasionally moves objects without touching them during moments of intense frustration. These abilities frighten and confuse Luke, who has no context for understanding them. C-3PO's vast databanks contain references to ancient mystical practices and pre-imperial religious orders, but the protocol droid's information is heavily fragmented and heavily censored by Imperial programming updates. Uncle Owen notices Luke's changes with growing alarm. The older man recognizes similarities to stories his father told him about Luke's father and fears that Luke is developing the same dangerous abilities that led Anakin Skywalker to his doom. Owen's attempts to suppress or ignore Luke's emerging powers only increase the young man's frustration and anger. Chapter 9. The Dark Side's Ultimate Victory. 22 minutes to 24 minutes 30 seconds. Without the catalyst of Luke's heroic journey and eventual redemption of Darth Vader, the Sith achieved something unprecedented in galactic history: permanent victory. The cycle of light and dark that has defined a Force for millennia appears broken, with darkness reigning supreme across known space. Emperor Palpatine, secure in his power and no longer facing any credible threats, begins experimenting with dark-side techniques that were previously too dangerous to attempt. His ultimate goal becomes not just galactic domination, but the complete corruption of the Force itself. Ancient Sith temples are excavated, forbidden rituals are performed, and the very nature of life and death becomes subject to Imperial manipulation. Vader's role in these experiments proves crucial. The Dark Lord's mechanical nature allows him to interface with Sith artifacts and conduct rituals that would destroy purely organic beings. Together, Master and Apprentice work to create what Palpatine calls the Eternal Empire, a galactic order that will persist beyond death itself. The consequences of these dark experiments begin manifesting across the galaxy. Stars begin aging prematurely, entire solar systems experience temporal anomalies, and the barrier between life and death grows thin. The Empire's technological advances combined with dark side alchemy create abominations that serve as both warnings and examples of Imperial power. Luke Skywalker's growing Force sensitivity makes him particularly vulnerable to these galactic dark side influences. His untrained abilities, corrupted by the overwhelming dark side energy permeating the galaxy, begin manifesting in destructive ways. Equipment failures, violent accidents, and unexplained phenomena plague the Lars farm with increasing frequency. The final tragedy occurs when Luke's uncontrolled powers accidentally kill Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru during a moment of intense rage.
The guilt and horror of this act, combined with his isolation and lack of understanding about his abilities, drive Luke completely over the edge into madness and dark side corruption. Chapter 10. The Galaxy's Final Darkness. 24 minutes 30 seconds to 25 minutes. Our exploration of this alternate timeline ends with the galaxy completely transformed by a single purchasing decision made decades earlier. The choice of C-3PO over R2-D2 created a cascade of failures that doomed not just the Rebel Alliance, but the very concept of freedom itself. Princess Leia died in Imperial custody, her message of hope never delivered. Obi-Wan Kenobi faded into obscurity and despair, his faith in the Force shattered by inaction. Luke Skywalker, instead of becoming the galaxy's savior, became another casualty of the dark side's corruption. The Death Star remains operational, a permanent reminder of Imperial might and the futility of resistance. The Force itself appears broken, with the dark side achieving total victory over light. The Sith has succeeded, not just in destroying the Jedi, but in corrupting the very source of their power. The galaxy exists in a state of enforced peace that is indistinguishable from death. This alternate timeline serves as a reminder of how small decisions can have enormous consequences. Uncle Owen's practical choice to purchase a protocol droid instead of an astromech unit changed everything. Sometimes the fate of the galaxy truly does hinge on the smallest of moments. The next time you watch A New Hope and see those Jawas presenting their droids to the Lars family, remember this dark alternate timeline. Remember how close the galaxy came to eternal darkness, and how a single malfunctioning motivator saved everything that matters in the Star Wars universe.